Hi guys, in today's video I will be showing you a full Moana themed birthday cake step-by-step tutorial, so keep watching to find out exactly how you can make this Moana birthday cake from scratch. To start, you'll need lots of fondant icing. I've used Renshaw icing here in these main colours for the Moana cake. I've also got some green food colouring here, which we'll be using later for the Heart of Te Fiti area, and some tappets to do lettering for the name of the child whose birthday it is and their age, and also this wooden style impression mat. I've then got this yellow sunflower colour edible dusting powder, which I'll be using later for some flowers, edible glue, some gum tragacanth, which is added to the fondant icing to make it dry harder, a small rolling pin, knife and yellow ball tool. So to start, then I'm adding the gum tragacanth to some of my brown fondant icing, rolling that out, and I am literally smoothing and pushing into it the wooden impression mat. I'm then going to trim all of the edges off. So this is going to be the wooden plank of wood, as if it's some washed up wood on a deserted island. And then I'm simply going to put the wooden plank onto a foam board to dry for a while, and then you can add on top the child's name using the tappet letters. I will put links and details in the description box below of every single video that I reference in this video, for example how to use tappets to create fondant letters, so you can go and check out all of those videos too. I've then cut out a few little gaps and slits in the side of the wooden piece to make it look a bit more authentic, and I've also made a wooden oar just like Moana has in the film, using a wooden dowel and some more brown fondant icing on top in an oar shape. And I've also put the wooden impression mat into this piece as well. Next we will be making some flowers. So I didn't actually have a flower petal cutter, so I just thought do it myself, freehand. So just cut out 5 petal shapes, pretty small, cut them into individual petals, and then put those onto the foam mat, and using the ball tool, I'll link these down below as well, just roll that around the icing to make it a little bit thinner, make the edges slightly thinner, and just sort of spread it out a little bit to give it a bit more texture. And then you're going to get a cocktail stick and roll carefully one side of each of the petals. It doesn't matter which side you choose as long as you're consistent in which one you do. Then put a bit of edible glue onto the opposite edge of the petal of all of them, and then really slowly you're going to place each petal on top of each other so that you have this flat fan shape. Just do this really, really carefully. I know it doesn't look like a flower yet, but it will, I promise. Once that's done, fold it upwards into itself in a little cone and seal up those 2 remaining petals so they stick to each other. Then I've used an empty egg box and some tin foil to place these flowers inside so that when they dry they will retain their shape. Next I'm going to be doing some other flowers, this time using pink fondant icing. I think these are supposed to be hibiscus flowers, and these are having 5 petals on each of them. Again, I didn't have a specific petal cutter for this one. You can buy them, just Google it. But equally you can just go freehand and cut them out yourself. Again, use the ball tool just to smooth it out, thin it out, give it a bit more shape. And then, I know it looks a bit weird, but you can actually buy sort of moulded impression mats for petals. Again, Google them, or I'll put a link below. But I was looking nearby in the kitchen thinking, what have I got that could add a bit of texture? And it sounds bizarre, but actually this lemon rind actually did the trick okay. So I'm also adding edible glue onto the backs of the petals then, and sticking a thin piece of craft wire, which I've used in a few different cake tutorials actually. You can get a bag full of them pretty reasonably. And then I'm just squeezing the fondant ever so slightly around the base of the wire, and then placing that upside down into a small mug, again filled with foil, so that when the petals dry they will be fanning outwards. Now back onto the white flowers, which by this point should have dried nicely, and I'm just using some of that yellow sunflower dust and using this dried up brush to carefully place that in the center of the flowers. So next onto the seaweed, basically you just need to get some of the green fondant icing and make a long worm like shape, roll it out, and then using the rolling pin flatten it out a little bit and then twist it all up. You can do long ones, medium, small, chop off the end so it's pretty blunt, and then just move them around slightly, tweak them to bend them and make them look a bit more realistic for when you attach them onto the cake. And then onto my nemesis for this cake. I feel like there's always one part of a big cake that goes wrong for me. This is going to be the heart of Te Fiti. Again, you just need a load more green fondant icing. Roll this out really carefully into one really long snake shape. And I thought this was like a perfect swirl, but actually it's not at all. It's a very specific shape. So it took me a while to get it exactly like this. And once I did, I placed it onto the foam mat and I then left that to dry for quite a while just so it was nice and hard. I've also made these kind of wooden stick things. I'm not sure on their exact name, but they do feature in the film. So these are using a mix of white and brown icing to give it a slightly marbled woody effect. I've just pinched in the sides to make it look bumpy, added on some of the wooden impression mat again to give a wood effect, and then I've used one of the kind of knife tools from the yellow set just to add those ridges in along the side. And something I've never used before in my whole life is Isomalt. So this comes in these really small balls which look like glass, and you can get them in loads of different colours. I've chosen blue because I'm trying to do some waves. You basically follow the instructions on the packet. I'll put a link below as to where you can get it from. So because it was all a bit stressful to do this, it was the first time you're doing it, I didn't actually manage to film the spreading out, but basically it was in this bowl, was really, really hot. It turns into a complete liquid, and then I just spread it out onto my silicone mat in these fan shapes, not onto this plastic chopping board. And when the cake is finished, I'm going to stick them in the side and hopefully it will look like the sea coming out. So here we have the base tier of my cake. I will link below video where I've made a cake just like this. It's basically a vanilla sponge. They've had 2 loads of blue buttercream icing. The first a thin crumb coat, and then I left that in the fridge for about 10-15 minutes, and now an additional coat of more buttercream, and I'm just scraping off the excess here. It doesn't need to be completely perfect. I'm just smoothing in the edges, because it's going to have quite a lot of icing on top, and the top tier will be going on top anyway, so you're not really going to see too much of it. Now on to creating some icing waves to go around the base tier. This is white and blue icing mixed, and this is going to be at the top of the base tier. I found these cool impression mats as well in swirl and wave theme, which I thought would be perfect for this cake. So I'm just smoothing that on, and now this is going to be attached to the top edge of the cake. You'll see where I'm going with this in a second. I'm starting with the lightest at the top, and then the middle of the cake is going to be this blue, which is kind of a medium blue, again mixed with white to give a bit of an ocean vibe, and then using this pizza cutter actually to give a nice crisp edge. That's going around the center, and then this is a slightly darker blue. And on this one, I'm pressing in this kind of a wave effect impression mat. And this will be cut and laid against the side of the base tier at the bottom. So it should be darkest blue at the bottom, medium blue in the centre, and a pale blue on the top edge of the base tier. Now I'm just covering my baseboard, which was silver, but I thought I would cover it with some blue buttercream because I had some left over, and it would give something for these biscuits to stick to make sand. This is literally just a whole packet of biscuits in the NutriBullet or blender or food processor. Now I'm adding on some shells. This is just white fondant icing laid into a shell mold, which you can get on the internet, and then dust with an ivory iridescent edible sort of shimmer dust, I suppose. So just place those around your beach in the sand wherever you think's appropriate. Now to add on the seaweed, just using some edible glue, place that ever so lightly against the edge of the cake and position the seaweed wherever you think looks best, really. You can have as many or as few as you feel like. I do think it looks really nice though to kind of alternate the different heights of the seaweed. Right, here we go. This is the top tier of the cake. I think I've got two 8-inch cakes here, and I think the base tier was two 10-inch. There's always something that goes wrong with one of my cakes when I'm decorating it, and it does tend to be about midnight or 1 a.m. when I'm really stressed and tired and rushing a cake. But again, this is more vanilla sponge cake with buttercream in the centre and raspberry jam. It has only one coat here of the green buttercream, and then I seem to have stuck on the heart of Te Fiti prematurely because I then realised I still had my mossy, grassy mixture to add on. This is basically more buttercream with more dark green food colouring and mixed in a load more of the sandy biscuit type thing. So when this is spread over the cake, it should be giving this nice mossy, grassy effect, like it is Te Fiti rising up with the flowers on. So what I decided to do was to mix in this mossy, pasty icing stuff, which actually tastes way better than it looks, with the buttercream, and spread that over. And actually I quite like the effect that it has. So here you can see the bottom tier, then you can see those 3 layers of different coloured waves on the base. I've added on the white flowers. Those also have a pink pearl centre. Those pink pearls are from a set of sprinkletti, which I think is called Under the Sea. I've also added on some white pearls just to the side. So here is the Under the Sea themed sprinkletti, and I just used a small spoon to sprinkle this over and fill the gap between the 2 tiers, which just gives a really nice under the sea effect, like there's pearls and beads and things sitting at the bottom of the ocean. So here you can see the final hibiscus flowers, which I've now added to the top of the cake. There are 5 pink petals on each of them, and they have been sort of brushed with some red food colouring, just mixed with water. I brushed this ever so slightly. You don't need a lot at all. I also had a red food colouring pen, which I kind of just scraped along as well to give this kind of effect, like the centre of the flowers blooming outwards. And I also added inside the hibiscus flowers, it's a piece of craft wire like we used before, and that has just a small worm of pale pink fondant on the end, which has then been dipped in edible glue, and then some more of the sunflower yellow edible dust and stuck in the middle. Those 5 petals are quite fragile, and when you are connecting them at the back, I used a tiny bit of tape. You can use masking tape just to keep them really securely together before you actually push it into the cake. I've added the waves around the edges and more of the white flowers. You can see the wooden oar is stuck in the top, and I've put a 5 on that because it was my daughter's 5th birthday. I've also added her name onto the wooden plaque, which goes right at the top in the centre, and that also has more, I think those are kebab skewers, which are attaching on the side. And you can also see that I've added the Isomalt pieces sticking out the top and the sides to represent the ocean and the waves flicking up from the sea and the island and Te Fiti. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I know it's a big cake and it's been a long one. If you've got any additional questions, please do let me know in the comments section below. I know I haven't gone through every single tiny detail of this cake. I've just given an overview, but I'm happy to go through any of the individual bits and pieces with you if you need to. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you've liked it. Leave a comment, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thanks guys, bye.